Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So I'm Nancy. I'm one of the nurses in the Community Wellness Department. I'm here to introduce David, who'll introduce himself as well in a greater capacity. He's one of our palliative care nurses and specialists in the hospital. He's going to explain the 5 wishes as well as the most advanced directives. Our hospital has set a goal of having 500 members of the community complete the 5 wishes advanced directive plan in the community this year. It's a plan that we'd like to encourage all people to set in place in case the unfortunate happens and those decisions have to be made about end of life care. We always want to make sure we're respectful of what their desires would be. And it's a very simple form that we want to have the healthcare workers help initiate and complete with our patients and the entire community as much as possible so we can be respectful of our individuals' wishes, no matter what they may be. So is there anything else you'd like me to add? No, I'll go ahead and let David take over. He does a fabulous job teaching how to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Hey, everybody. So my name is David Sachs. I'm the palliative care coordinator here at the hospital. The only thing is I'm actually a social worker, not a nurse, but people mistake me for everything these days. The important thing to understand and take away from this, 5 wishes is a particular document. It's an advanced directive. There are other types of advanced directives, other forms that can be used. The most important thing is who can make medical decisions for you if you're ever in a position that you can't make it yourself. So, I can't really see everybody but I hope that you all have one, because once we turn 18, we really should have an advanced directive, because who is going to be able to make medical decisions if you're not able to make them? A lot of people think it's going to be their spouse, their parents, their partner. But if it's not in writing, there are certain things that those people may be able to participate in, but it will basically fall into doctors' hands if you do not have something in writing. So that's why we really want to be on top of having this done, because almost every day I see here in the hospital a family member or somebody who wants to make decisions for their loved one, says that they know exactly what they want, but never had anything put in writing. And that's why we want to get these things accomplished and get them in place. I have run into many people over the years who have been reluctant to do this because they're afraid that if they do an advance directive, that's going to mean that someone can take over for them. And that is definitely not the case at all. Anybody who has an advance directive will always be able to make their own decisions as long as they have the capacity to be able to do that. So it doesn't matter how sick somebody is, if they're able to make their own decisions, the person who is named in the document will not be able to override them. And I think that's a really important piece to understand and just to be able to share with people, because they don't, that is one of the things that holds them back from doing it. What is an advance directive? An advance directive is a document that just says, who can make medical decisions if I'm not able to do it? And you can name up to, in most documents, you can name up to 3 people to make medical decisions for you. You don't have to name 3 people, but it is recommended to name at least 2 in case something happens to the first person. At least there's a backup person in place. I'll tell you a little bit about the 5 Wishes booklet. The Five Wishes booklet came about by a man by the name of Jim Toey, who was actually legal counsel for Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And she inspired him to defend and protect life, the most beautiful gift of God, to bring God's love and compassion to the elderly and the poor. And via this document, he believed that they would be able to make sure that every person who has completed it is going to get the important care in the manner in which they want to have it. because not everybody wants everything. And so this document will kind of look into that. This document came about by interviewing over 9,000 people who were looking at what they thought their end of life would look like or should look like. And so when you look at this document, there are many bullet points and many statements that came about through discussions with those people, but you'll see that they're really mostly generic types of statements that I believe most people would really want. Now, the reason that we've chosen the Five Wishes booklet over, let's say, the Maryland State Advance Directive or directives that lawyers produce, they all basically have the same parts. So no offense to any lawyers, but we don't have to pay a lawyer to complete a healthcare power of attorney because there's no need for that. And they're basically using a general template anyway. The Five Wishes booklet is good in 46 of the 50 states. And it's not that it's not good in the other four. It's just that in the other four, Kansas, New Hampshire, Ohio, and Texas, there's a requirement for what's called a statutory form or a state form that just has additional information that has to be attached to the Five Wishes to make it valid. So if you fill that out here in Maryland and you take it with you to another state, it should be valid. There are a couple of states where it needs to be notarized. Maryland is not one of those states. And again, whether you use the Five Wishes, the Maryland State Advance Directive, or even if you do one in a lawyer's office, they do not need to be notarized. The Five Wishes has been translated into 30 different languages. And so it is good throughout the world and is used throughout the world. So as we look at the Five Wishes booklet, wish number one is just, who do I want to help make medical decisions if I'm not able to do that? And again, as I said, you can name up to 3 people. If there's a desire to put more than that, I've had people write more than 3 people in there. But for the ease of the document itself, that's all that's necessary. What do we do with this document? Well, once this document is completed, this document should be given to all of the people that are named as healthcare agents here in number 1. Any of your doctors or healthcare providers should have a copy of this on file. And there should be a copy usually readily available that can be found. So many people tell us that, oh, we had we have that in a safe, or we have that in our safe deposit box. And so it's not easily obtained when it's necessary. If you're doing that here in this area and you have been a patient at either the hospital or one of the provider's offices connected to the hospital, then you can bring a copy into medical records and they can scan that into your healthcare record so it is permanently part of things. This document can be updated at any time. All that happens when you do that is you just void this one and you add the next one that has the updated information. If you're 18, that may change 2 or 3 times throughout your lifetime. If you're in your 40s or 50s, it may not. It just depends on your circumstances and who it is that you've named. If you name a spouse now and you end up getting divorced, you may very well want to rename somebody else to be able to make those decisions. You especially want to pick somebody who is going to be able to uphold what it is that is important to you. So if you say to somebody, look, I don't ever want to be on a ventilator, you want to make sure that it's someone who is able and comfortable saying to the doctor, hey, they didn't want to be on a ventilator. I don't want them to be on a ventilator. I've had many people who have not named their spouse because they're afraid that their spouse would not follow suit with what was important to them. So you want to choose carefully who you're picking for these positions. I've had people in the past who've told me that, of my kids, one would be able to do it, the other one would fall to pieces. You don't want the person that's going to fall to pieces. You want someone who can be strong and stand up for what it is that's important to you. So that's the first part of this document. One of the things that we add to this document often and is actually a part of the Maryland State Advance Directive is just a line that says this document goes into effect upon signing. Without this document, it indicates that two physicians would have to make a determination that you lack capacity. Well, especially in hospitals today, the way the system works, we use a hospitalist system. And the hospitalists, if they don't necessarily know the person, they may be reluctant to say that the person doesn't have capacity in certain circumstances, which might delay determining who can actually make the decisions for for the patient. So we like to add this one clause in there, and just that this document goes into effect upon signing. After wish number one, we get into wish number two, which is commonly known, or in many other documents is known as the living will. And it just says, if I am in one of three conditions, close to death, in a coma, not expected to wake or recover, or have permanent severe brain damage and not expected to wake or recover, and if I'm in one of those three conditions, what kinds of treatment do I want? Do I want life support at that time? Do I not want life support? And if it's started, I want it stopped. Or I want life support if my doctor believes that it could help, but if my doctor is okay with not doing that, then I'll go along with whatever my doctor says. Again, I hope that it's one of those things, if you choose that you recognize it may be a doctor who doesn't necessarily know you and may not choose things based on what is important to you. And that's why having somebody that you've named, that understands what's important to you, then you can proceed with that. Again, this may change also if you're in your 20s versus if you're in your 50s or 60s. The other parts of this document, wish number three, wish number four, again, these are the statements that came out of talking to the thousands of people that they interviewed to try and figure out what was important. So if you look at the top of the page on wish number three, on the right-hand side, it says, I wish to be massaged with warm oils as often as I can be. Well, for me personally, I'm good with that. I would absolutely enjoy that. I know a lot of people who that's not what they want. Just because those lines are in this document, it doesn't mean that someone's going to throw a bucket of oil all over you. If there's something that you really just don't like, you can actually just put a line through whichever one of those points doesn't make sense, or even if all of them don't make sense, you can put lines through all of them. The reality with this is these are not necessarily going to drive how a doctor makes decisions about what's right. These are designed to drive what your healthcare agents are asking for, and even to be able to show maybe a family member who doesn't agree with these things, to be able to show them how to go about making the right decisions for you based on what you've chosen. But again, these are just important things. How I want people to treat me. Some of it doesn't, it seems pretty straightforward. I wish to be cared for with kindness and cheerfulness and not sadness. I would hope that most people who are delivering care would be doing that. But I think sometimes when it comes to family or extended family, that may be more for them. Um, I want to die in my home if that can be done. That's probably the number one statement that we hear from patients on a regular basis. They don't want to be in a nursing facility, they want to be at home. And so, again, if you have somebody who is going to carry those things out for you, they're going to be involved with doing everything they can to get the patient home, even if it's in their dying moments. So that's what these are there for. But again, they're not the critical aspect of this document. The critical aspects are who can make the decisions and the living will section, what you want if you're in those three conditions. Wish number 5 is, again, what I want my loved ones to know. Again, many different things, but at the bottom of that right-hand side there, you see, after my death, I wish to be buried or cremated. My body or remains should be put in the following location. The following person knows my funeral wishes. Again, that does not need to be filled in. You can, as long as you have somebody who knows those things, they'll be able to step up and take care of that. Again, some people will actually put in, how I wish to be remembered, what they want in a memorial service, readings, songs. So you can put those things in there if you think that will help others. But again, most important part, the takeaway from all of this is I want to be able to name who I want to make decisions, take care of the healthcare power, I'm sorry, the living will section. And then the next part on the next page here is where this document gets signed. Oh, went back. Yeah, I got to go backwards.
Oh my. Sorry, guys.
Hold on. It's that.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So here's where this document gets signed. Okay. This document has to be signed in front of 2 witnesses. The witnesses cannot be anyone who is named in the document or anyone who's related to the person who this document is being made for. So, you may be a sibling or a child, but you're not one of the people named in the front part of the document. You still can't be one of the witnesses. When it's done here, if we do it at the hospital, even though I think it says something about legal personnel or healthcare, the lawyers for the hospital have determined that our nursing staff are capable of being witnesses when this is done. I know I had somebody the other day who said they actually had a advanced directive signing party where they got together with a few of their friends and they all helped sign each other's documents. As you can see there, it says notarization. In the state of Maryland, it does not need to be notarized. Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, and West Virginia are the only states that need to be notarized. My understanding is if it's completed here in Maryland and is not notarized, it will often still be accepted and followed if you are in one of those other states. Sometimes it is recommended if you move to another state to make sure that you just double check the laws, and that in that case, if it needs to be redone and notarized, if you're moving to one of those states, you might want to do that just for making sure there aren't any issues that come up down the road. So that is the advance directive. One of the things that we get asked all the time, or we get told all the time actually, is people tell us that they, I'm sorry, I just lost my track there. All right. I was looking at this here. So what do we do after we sign this document? Okay. Again, don't put it in a safe or a safe deposit box. Make sure that everybody who's named in the document has copies. All of your doctors have copies. And if you're, whatever hospital you tend to be dealing with, that a copy is maintained in the hospital database as well, so that you don't have to go through difficulty when you're in crisis. Very often, when we're talking to people and they tell us that they have an advance directive, they also tell us that they're a do not resuscitate. So if in wish number 2 you said, I don't want I don't want to be resuscitated if I'm in one of those 3 conditions, that does not make you a do not resuscitate. What makes you a do not resuscitate is actually having a medical order signed by either a doctor, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant. So that can be by your primary care doctor, it can be by a specialist. Whoever you're seeing and you feel comfortable with, they can actually complete a MOLST form for you. What is the MOLST form? The MOLST form is the medical order for life-sustaining treatment. This document, as I said, is a medical order. This is what, if someone calls 911 to your house, they will not look at the Five Wishes booklet or the Maryland State. They will only look at that MOLST form. What's on the MOLST form? There's two sides to the MOLST form, and the easiest way to think about it is pulse and no pulse. So the front side of the MOLST form says, if I have no pulse, meaning my heart has stopped beating, do I want CPR? Do I want to be placed on a ventilator at the time of cardiac arrest? That's the easiest way to think about it. We see way too many people who look at this form and are confused, including professionals who use it all the time in terms of what does it mean. The front side, I don't have a pulse. It would be where you would do CPR unless I've instructed you not to do it. So on the MOLST form, it says on that front side, it says full code, do not resuscitate, but okay to intubate, which does not make a whole lot of sense because if your heart's not beating, putting you on a ventilator isn't going to start your heart from beat again. No, no CPR and no ventilator. Or there's another one that's called DNR-B, which means just that whenever it stops, I don't want any heroics. I don't want any medications to try and get my blood pressure. I don't want any of those things. I just want to be at peace when I pass away. Being a do not resuscitate does not mean do not treat, which is what a lot of people are worried about too. So they think if I'm a do not resuscitate, then nobody's going to take care of me. And that is farthest from the truth. Do not resuscitate only means when my heart stops beating, let me be at peace. Up until that point, we do all the treatments, everything that's being done to keep you going. That's exactly what is going to happen. The back side of the MOLST form is what if I have a pulse? So my heart is beating fine, but I'm having respiratory issues. Would I want to be on a ventilator? There are some people who say, yeah, I'm fine with being on a ventilator. There's some people who absolutely say no way. And there's others that say, you know what, I'd be okay with it temporarily, but I don't want it to be long term. So that's a choice that can be made on that. It says, would I want a blood transfusion if I needed it? The answer for that is either yes or no. It says, am I okay with being transferred from hospital to hospital or from facility to facility? Again, people can say yes, maybe depending on the circumstances, or no. Same thing with medical workup, for a patient who maybe has, stage 4 cancers being treated, but they recognize, if I come into the hospital, you don't have to do the $1 million workup to determine that I have cancer. I already know that. So only treat the reason that I came into the hospital. You don't have to go through all these other things. Are you okay with IV antibiotics or only oral antibiotics? Are you okay with IV fluids? Are you okay with a feeding tube? And the answer to that can be, yes, I'm okay with a feeding tube. I'm only okay with a feeding tube temporarily. I don't want a feeding tube, but I'm okay with IV fluids, or I don't want any artificial nutrition or hydration. And then the last part of the MOLST form is about dialysis. And that just says the same thing. Would I want dialysis? And the answers are, yes, maybe for a short period of time, or no. Again, you may not know the answer to that. That's okay. That can be left open. The more important piece is there are a lot of people out there who really have strong feelings about this. This gives them the opportunity to be able to express what they want. What do we do with the MOLST form? The MOLST form's a little bit different. The most form, you want to keep a copy either on the refrigerator, the back of the front door, or near the patient's bed, because if someone calls 911, they're trained to look for it there, and the most form is what they will follow. If you try to give them that 5 wishes, they're going to push it away because it isn't a medical order, so they're not concerned with what's actually even written in the document. So I know I've given you a lot of information and gone through a lot of different things. What do we do with all these things? How do we make these decisions? They're difficult, but I think it's important that if you're not sure about this, is that you seek out somebody who can help you step through this and go through this. Primary care doctors, they are able to actually bill Medicare or bill the insurance for having a session of sitting down and talking through, especially the most form. So, they may not do it if you go in for a regularly scheduled appointment and you say, hey, I'd like to do that. They may ask you to come back at a different time, but they can actually bill for their time and services in completing that. What else can I tell you? Yeah, okay. All right. So, again, the hospital, our wellness program here has made the determination that they would like to have 505 wishes completed in the year 2025. All right. What do we do with it? When we sign it, we make copies of it. We make sure that everybody who's named in the document gets a copy, because I'll tell you what, there's so many times where we call somebody because they're named in the document and they're like, I didn't know that. The last thing you want is for someone to be surprised that way. So, it is really important to make sure that you've talked to those people before you name them. All right. We make sure that you have copies so that you can give them out. You can make as many copies as you want of that document. All right. The wellness section here, what they have done is they're creating that card that you can see. It says go to my directives, where it's a wallet card where you can put, who are the people that you've named in the document and where can they find a copy of it? Where are you putting it? Some of us have really impressive filing systems, and many people have filing systems that they are the only ones that understand how they would ever find that document in their home. So it's important that you know where to go and find that document. The little red thing you see on the right, the file of life, is a little magnetic pouch that the Wellness Center gives out that you can put on your refrigerator, and you can put these documents in there. It isn't going to necessarily hold the big sheet of the most form, but you can actually use the magnet part to hold the most on the refrigerator so that it's easily found.
Also, this wallet card that we're making for advanced directives, we're also getting in Spanish. So we'll have those in soon, I'm pretty sure.
So I think, having gone through all of this, I can open it up to questions for anybody out there who has any questions. You can just take yourself off mute. Okay. Well, I am always available at the hospital. You can always contact me at the hospital. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I'm more than happy to help out. I hope that this was helpful, and hopefully it has inspired you to make sure that you have your own advanced directive, so that, because look, we can talk about what happens if it's a health related issue, but quite frankly, if you drive out on Route 4, you take your life in your hands when you go out there. So, these are important not only just for health, but even if there was an accident or something like that. And if no one has any questions, then thank you everyone for being part of everything.
And
Go ahead.
Christine has her hand up.
Hi, good afternoon.
You can go
Thank
ahead
you,
and speak.
Lisa. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you. I
Christine.
did not have any because you were very thorough in your presentation. So thank you very much.
We can't hear you.
You said you can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
1 second.
Okay, can you hear
Right.
me now?
Yeah,
Yes, now we
sorry.
can, yeah.
Okay, that's all right. First, I said thank you to Lisa. And I was saying that I don't have questions because you were very thorough in your presentation. And I just wanted to say thank you
Oh, thank
for that
you.
information. My primary care provider has been on me about getting this done. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. So that's why I joined.
Kudos to your primary care. We like to hear that. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys for coming.